Okay, now Kang out of here. I was like, I guess I don't know what direction he should go, past, present, future, because he could do it all. But guess what? He ain't about to do anything in Marvel. Because I was like, we might just vamoose him. I was like, maybe he is recast, maybe not. Who knows? Um, so right now, as we decide to do like sequel, part one, part two, whatever, have an Avenger movie up in there, whatever they decide to do, they over here doing a lot of things. Right now, I'm like, hey, who should be the big bad to get us there? And I was like, maybe because I was like, look, I was like, I ain't working for them, so I don't know all these things. In a way that I'm like, maybe he can't be the big bad, but I'm like, maybe it's a bad to get us to the next big bad or to the situation that we had. Either way, I was thinking about it, and I was like, look, of course, everybody's sort of top options really kind of Doom, and I'm not saying that it can't work. I'm not saying that not a possibility. But at the same time, I'm like, since he's a technically an unknown character, I was like, let's be honest. If you watch any of the Fantastic Four movies, you met Doom. I was like, if you watched any of the animated shows, you done seen Doom. Um, and I'm just talking about like general audience. I was like, yes, if you read comic books and stuff like that, of course you know who Doom is. But I'm talking about like I guess more of a broader audience, like not necessarily the casuals, but I was like, we'll talk. But I was like, they're included. But I'm just saying, like somewhere in that in between. Like I didn't really do comics like that, so I was like from the movies or from the animated shows and things like that. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I got a grip of who he is and stuff like that. Um, then listening to the people that know more stuff about me, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And that's why I'm like, it seemed like it'd be kind of difficult to have him come in, especially as we're getting fewer projects. And don't get me wrong, I was like, the people back in charge, so they could do this right. But I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm thinking that, all right, outside of him, and him being, like I said, relatively unknown, I'm thinking the big bad should be somebody that people know in some form already. And you're going to see with my rundown of things. All right, cool. So, they're already doing multiverse stuff. We're still going to stick with multiverse things. So, that's why I'm like, okay, how about it maybe it has to be a multiversal party or something like that. And by that I'm saying we seen at the end of Marvels, Monica Rambeau end up in another place. We don't know what that is, but they already got mutants, and her mom is there as binary, which is basically like a Captain Marvel adjacent. So I was like, we could have them maybe be the incursion that's going to run up against Earth, maybe, and they're the ones. But I'm like, I was like, but then we gotta get familiar with that universe. So let's just go to the one that we already done seen and talked to, the A38 universe. I was like, where Scarlet Witch basically they walked into that Wanda. I was like the one with the kids. Um, where I was like where she killed off that Mr. Fantastic and Captain Marvel and Captain Carter and um, Bolt and stuff like that. Maybe that should be the one that should be, because I was like, they got revenge all on their side. And I was like, they still, like, you got the other people that's with the Fantastic Four. He had killed Professor Xavier, so there's the rest of the mutants out there. Um, I was like, Mordo is still alive. I was like, that later. They have all the means to basically do this. Or by anything, maybe like Strange being there for so long connected them in a way that now they can't. They've been doing so well of trying to make sure that they wouldn't any encouragement release things running into them that maybe that caused a loop or whatever like that. Also, we don't know what Strange is doing with with his side quest. So, but I'm just saying, like, maybe you could do some form of that with that linkage, or them having revenge, or being like, how would you like if we came to your place, kind of thing. And so that's just a thought. That's just, I was like, an easy one that I'm like, you could easily do in a movie or two in some form, just because I'm like, they got the means and the way to assess things that we don't. So I'm like, they could just show back up. But I imagine that, maybe that could be an Avenger like movie, because technically they're going to bring their version of whatever they call over there. And they got an arsenal of people way more than what we seem to have right now. All right, so number two in my thought process, I brought him up with the last group, is Mordo, but our Mordo, who we haven't seen at all since Doctor Strange 1, and that's flipping crazy. I don't understand how that has gone down that long, that we got basically someone who threatened themselves as a villain, and we never got to touch it. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things in Marvel that we don't ever get like touch back on or stuff like that, but they're mostly my small, minute things that's kind of like, use your best imagination. We could talk about it. I was like, they print out. I was like, they got the little book that do little plot holes and stuff like that. But this, I was like, or like how like in Ant-Man Quantumania, like they were trying to steal that stuff, and it's like, for who, for why, for what. But I was like, but that's something that could be tied in, just like how they did like stuff with the Ten Ring. Mordo just being gone and just kind of like, what? And it's like, and it was cool. Like, yeah, we seen him in Doctor Strange 2, but kind of like, but that ain't ours. What happened to ours? Ours is over here, made a whole decree of, oh, I'm gonna take back basically all those that abuse it, and it's kind of like, okay, so Doctor Strange ain't never said nothing about him. Wong out here doing everything, and it's like, he not talking about him. I like Carmitage over here just chilling. How I was like, and I'm pretty sure he would know what that is. How he not figured in anything? How is he not brought up in anything? What is he? What did he just stop after the dude that basically can't play basketball no more? Like that's what his mission was? Did he just stop there? Is there not really? Is all of like the sorcerers and stuff like that just only in Carmitage? Is that what it is? And they built up something to have him not be cloaked or something. Like I want to know what happens to that story, and I wanted to basically tie into basically all of this, because I'm like, he should be able to get powers, and I was like, he should, like, he can learn and all that other stuff, and the same type of art that Doctor Strange does and Wong does, to where he could actually be a threat, and he can also bounce from universes and all these other things in a way too that you can do it from a different perspective than Kang, but he basically can be Kang, where he can basically do future past things. It's like he can manipulate the world that we're in. He can do a lot of the several things, to where I think could easily just flip and be Kang. Like, not him being Kang, but be our replacement of a Kang figure. Because I'm like, why couldn't he basically, how Doctor Strange did all the same thing? Yes, Doctor Strange had the time stone, a lot of that stuff, but a lot of this stuff is in books. And I was like, he could basically take up the knowledge in books and whatnot, and basically do this on a magical scale. And I was like, and this could help a lot of other things too. It could tie in like the Black Knight or Blade or Midnight Suns. They deal with that type of thing. Yeah, I was like, he could be a force in this whole thing that I'm like, you don't see it coming, but it's a good way of being like, oh, that guy, I remember him. I'm like, he got some familiarity. Like I said, I don't fully would be like, oh, that's how he's gonna do it, but he should be able to be placed in there. And number three, because it just doesn't seem in any way that he should be able to really die, is Ultron. Now, yes, I know we got like the what if version of it, and I'm like, that's cool. And I was like, what if they could do a lot of different things? And I'm like, I understand that. But I'm like, let's be honest. It's a totally different thing once you start dealing with real people, live people. It's not the same thing. It's a lot more of oh yeah, this might be it. This might be over. But I think what it showed us anything is that Ultron could be an ultimate being that just keeps on growing and growing and growing and growing. He basically doesn't have really any end to him. Um, and R basically also, I was like, R didn't just start out like, like that one did. I was like, this one has all the means of all of like, the repressed memories. I was like, he has a revenge on his hand. And also too, like, as he's been dormant or whatever you want to say, everything else in the world has gotten even more. I was like, the tech had gotten even better. I was like, so you could imagine, like, from the armors to the weapons craft to the, I was like, we're going to get Animanium at some point. Um, the knowledge of all of space beings and things like that has came apart. I was like, their tech and armor, um, like him able to leave Earth and expand out. I'm just saying, there's really more way that he could be a colossal threat and also be smart enough to also manipulate time and whatnot, especially because it's already been figured out. So I'm like, if that's been figured out, he already knows how to probably like manipulate it and break it or whatever you want to say. So I'm like, Ultron could be a higher threat, and in a way that I'm like, it also would go in with what the time is now, where it's like we got all the AI stuff going on too, and the bots and whatnot. And last but not least, the one that I was like, I would want to see outside of Mordo. Like I try to go with other options, but I would really want to see Mordo come back. But the other one, and the last one I was thinking of is Red Skull. Now, I was like, the Red Skull that we basically met at the end of Vormir, I was like, maybe he doesn't have any intentions of doing anything. But then again, I'm like, but at heart, you still got to be Red Skull. But now you have all this knowledge that the Soul Stone and other things that give it him, and now he knows about this vast beyond of his little small intentions from Earth kind of thing. Um, so he had a different mindset and a different way of doing things that could make him even more dangerous. That's saying if he's now, you might have to work around kind of like if the soul stone is returned that he could stay there, but that's technically the past. But the future was taken, but it got micro dusted basically. That is still there. Do he still got to stay on the planet? How does he get off the planet? Whatever. All these little small. I was like, getting off the planet, the one was just being stupid. But the other ones of like that, I was like, those are a little bit more logical. But it doesn't matter. He got all this knowledge now. He could figure out a way to do that. Maybe he fulfilled his purpose once somebody finally came and got the soul stone. But he could be a universal threat just because he's not earthbound anymore. He's been out there and he could go through the cosmos. You don't know what type of, I guess, powers he either has or has gotten. And look, maybe he appeared in some form in Captain America 4. I doubt it, just because I feel like that might be doing too much, especially for Anthony, Falcon's first movie. Um, but it's still, I was like, but still, he could have whatever power. I was like, maybe you can do away where the stone come back, because guess what? They still are powerful. There's still something to be dealt with. So you can still have that be a threat. You can still have that be something that's worth something. Maybe he knows a way that he brought them back and he using them for his own means, which is a plague on the universe and everything else in between. Cause maybe he has more knowledge than just the cosmos. Maybe he is the one that's over here doing way too much behind the scenes. They're not just paperweights to him. I don't know, but that's just another character that I would like to see come back. And I feel like it's somebody that's like, I'm like, guess what? When he showed up at the end of Avengers Infinity War, people marked out a bit about, oh my God, he came back. I thought we never gonna see him again. So guess what? Now if he comes back and now he gets to be a different type of bad dude that I don't really think he really was in Captain America vs. Villain. Like he was an okay villain, but he's just a regular guy. But here, it's like if he was crazy and had that type of knowledge there, what is it now when he has this here with more motive? That's the question. Anyway, who else you got that you would want to see? Cause I'm trying to do like things that's like sort of from the past, but they also have been like in the background or they have been like forgotten. But you bring them back and everybody's on board, especially if you bring them back in a certain way of being like a top bad person, bad guy, whatever you want to say. Um, yeah, instead of just coming out of here and being like new or doing something, trying to shoehorn something in a small amount of time. Because I was like, yes, it's 4 years away, but there's no telling how many of these projects and stuff like that they still got, or they're gonna bring, or they're gonna just get rid of. So until then, you got to figure out your spots to try to get everybody back on board. And I was like, so having some old villain, but they're not just a villain, play a role, I think is the best way to go. But anyway, who else do you think or have in mind? Let me know. I appreciate it. Until then, peace out.